Rule number 1, by Phil Town. Picture this. It's 1980, and the Arizona sun is beating down mercilessly on the Grand Canyon. Deep in its rocky heart, a small paddle boat is drifting, slowly at first, then faster, toward a monstrous rapid called Crystal. On board are 6 wealthy trustees from the Outward Bound program, and their river guide, a young guy named Phil Town. Phil was about as far from Wall Street as you could possibly imagine. He was a former Green Beret who'd returned from Vietnam to a country that didn't exactly roll out the welcome mat. He'd been drifting through life, living in a teepee outside Flagstaff, riding a thunderous Harley-Davidson, and scraping together a living doing whatever hard work came his way. Right now, he was guiding this river trip, and things were going very, very wrong. Crystal wasn't just any rapid. This was nature at its most violent. 80,000 cubic feet of water per second, hammering into a granite wall, creating what rafters call the hole, a swirling vortex that could flip a boat and trap it underwater indefinitely. Phil had always managed to sneak past it before, but today was different. His crew of powerful executives, people used to commanding boardrooms, couldn't coordinate their paddling. They were exhausted, smacking paddles against each other and drifting backwards straight toward disaster. Pure panic kicked in. Phil screamed at them to paddle harder, yelling that their actual lives were on the line. Nothing changed. In a flash of horrible clarity, he could see their faces crushed against the cliff wall before being sucked into that watery abyss. In one last desperate move, he spotted a tiny seam of calmer water, a complete long shot, and screamed for them to paddle toward the very edge of the hole with everything they had left. Something clicked in that moment. Maybe they finally understood what was at stake. The boat shot forward. They skidded along the lip of the vortex, staring straight down into it, like mice peering into a washing machine mid-cycle, and then, miraculously, they were through. They didn't even get splashed. That night around the campfire, one of the trustees, a self-made millionaire Phil refers to as the Wolf, pulled him into a bear hug, his eyes glistening with emotion. "How can I possibly thank you for saving my life?" he asked. Phil was secretly hoping for a fat cash reward. Instead, the Wolf offered something entirely different. He quoted the old proverb, "Feed a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime." He was going to teach this long-haired river guide how to invest. He was going to share a secret, a simple rule that would transform Phil from earning $4,000 a year into becoming a millionaire in just 5 years. What I'm about to share with you is that exact secret. It's a strategy so straightforward, you can apply it in just 15 minutes a week. It's a method that promises returns of 15% or better, with minimal risk, and it's practically immune to the crazy mood swings of the stock market. This is the story behind Phil Town's book, Rule Number 1, and by the time we're done here, you'll understand the simple, powerful truth that Wall Street desperately doesn't want you to know, that you, right this minute, have everything you need to build genuine, lasting wealth. You don't need anyone's permission to get started. Let me ask you something. When you think about the stock market, what pops into your head? For most people, it's basically a casino, a high-stakes game of chance where you might get lucky, but you're probably going to lose big. You hear horror stories about people watching half their retirement evaporate in a downturn, and you think, yeah, that's definitely not for me. Way too risky. So what do we do instead? We hand over our hard-earned money to the so-called experts, the mutual fund managers who promise to navigate these dangerous waters on our behalf. We place our faith, our entire retirement, in their supposedly capable hands. And here's the devastating truth that the entire financial industry is built upon. They can't actually do it either. Let me share something that should make your jaw drop. Since 1985, only 4% of all fund managers in America have managed to beat the average market return, the S&P 500. Let that really sink in for a moment. 96% of these highly paid professionals, the people we're told are experts, fail at the one job they're actually paid to do. In fact, Philtown points out that a few years back, a monkey was hired to pick stocks by literally throwing darts at a newspaper. For 2 years straight, that monkey beat the best fund managers in New York. Think about the absurdity of that. You could have lost 50% of your money between 2000 and 2003 all by yourself, without paying some professional handsomely for the privilege of losing it for you. The truth is, the financial world wants you scared. They want you to believe that investing is this impossibly complex science, like brain surgery, that should only be attempted by credentialed professionals. They want you to swallow 3 massive myths. The first myth is that you have to be some kind of expert to manage your own money. The second is that you can't possibly beat the market. And the third one, the one you hear absolutely everywhere, is that the safest approach is to diversify and hold for the long term. But what if I told you that for 60 out of the last 100 years, a diversified, buy-and-hold portfolio would have earned you a grand total of 0%? 60 years. Entire lifetimes where people's money went absolutely nowhere. This is the trap of settling for mediocrity, of trusting people who honestly don't care about your money nearly as much as you do. Philtown learned a different approach from the wolf, who learned it from the greatest investor of all time, Warren Buffett. And Buffett learned it from his teacher, Benjamin Graham. It's a timeless piece of wisdom, passed down from mentor to student over generations. And it boils down to one beautifully simple idea, known as rule number 1. According to Warren Buffett, there are only 2 rules of investing. Rule number 1 is, don't lose money, and rule number 2 is, don't forget rule number 1. Now that might sound almost ridiculously simple, maybe even overly cautious, but it's actually the most powerful investment philosophy in the world. Because the secret to compounding money at a massive rate isn't about hitting home runs or making spectacular gains. It's about never, ever getting knocked back to square one. Here's the brutal math. A 50% drop in your portfolio requires a 100% gain just to get back to where you started. Most people experience this kind of devastating loss at some point in their investing lives. A rule number 1 investor never does. So how do we invest with near certainty that we won't lose money? The answer is the beating heart of this entire book. It's a phrase you need to memorize, write down, and tattoo on your brain. Certainty comes from buying a wonderful business at an attractive price. That's it. That's the entire game. We're not buying stocks, not buying little flashing ticker symbols on a screen that bounce around randomly. We're becoming the silent owners of wonderful businesses. And we're only going to buy them when they're on massive sale. We're going to buy $1 of genuine value for 50 cents. To do this, Philtown gives us a simple 4-step checklist he calls the 4 M's. If you can confidently answer yes to all 4 of these questions about a company, you've found an investment that could genuinely change your life. The first M is meaning. This is where everything begins, and it has absolutely nothing to do with numbers or spreadsheets. It starts with you. Does this business have meaning to you personally? Do you actually understand what it does? Would you feel proud to own the entire company? Here's the ultimate test. If you were told that this single business had to be the sole financial support for your family for the next 100 years, would you feel comfortable with that? This is a profound question. It forces you to stop thinking like a gambler playing a game and start thinking like an owner building something real. If you think a company is exploiting people or damaging the world, don't own it, period. Your money is literally your vote for the kind of world you want to see exist. This first step immediately simplifies the entire overwhelming universe of stocks. You don't have to understand biotech companies or complex software firms. Warren Buffett famously avoids technology stocks because, as he says plainly, he doesn't understand them. So what do you understand? What gets you excited? Where do you actually spend your money? Phil suggests a wonderfully simple exercise. Draw 3 overlapping circles. In the first one, write down everything you have genuine passion for. In the second, everything you have talent or expertise in. And in the third, Everything you regularly spend money on. The industries and companies that appear in two or all three of those circles, that's your starting point. If you love cars, start there. If you're a teacher, look at education companies. If you're a parent who spends a small fortune on kids, clothes, you probably know more about that industry than most Wall Street analysts ever will. This is what's called your circle of competence, and a rule number one investor never, ever steps outside of it. Because if you don't truly understand the business, you can't possibly predict its future. And if you can't predict its future with some confidence, you can't know what it's actually worth. And if you don't know what it's worth, you're not investing, you're just gambling with fancier vocabulary. Once you have a list of businesses that genuinely mean something to you, you move to the second M, moat. Imagine a beautiful, sturdy castle. A wonderful business is like that castle, but even the strongest castle is vulnerable to attack if it's not properly protected. That protection is the moat, the company's durable competitive advantage. It's the thing that keeps competitors at bay and allows the business to thrive for decades rather than just a few lucky years. There are 5 kinds of moats to look for. First, there's a brand moat. Think of Coca-Cola. You can buy a generic cola for half the price, but when you want a Coke, not some knockoff. People trust the brand deeply, and they're willing to pay more for it. Harley-Davidson has a massive brand moat. You could buy a technically superior motorcycle for less money, but it doesn't sound like a Harley, doesn't feel like a Harley, and doesn't command the same respect when you pull up somewhere. Second is a secret moat. This could be a patent, like a pharmaceutical company has on a breakthrough drug, or a closely guarded trade secret, like Coca-Cola's formula. It's something that makes it legally impossible, or at least incredibly difficult for competitors to copy what you do. Third is a toll moat. Imagine you own the only bridge across a major river. Anyone who wants to cross has to pay you a toll. No alternatives available. A local utility company has a toll moat. If you want electricity in your city, you pretty much have to buy it from them. Fourth is a switching moat. This happens when a product becomes so deeply integrated into your life that the hassle of switching to a competitor just isn't remotely worth it. Microsoft has a massive switching moat. Even if someone invents a better operating system, the pain of transferring all your files, relearning everything, and dealing with compatibility issues is just too much for most people to bother with. And fifth is a price moat. This belongs to companies that can price their products so aggressively low that nobody else can compete without going broke. Think Walmart or Costco. Their sheer massive scale allows them to operate with ruthless efficiency, and smaller competitors simply can't survive trying to match their prices. A wonderful business will have at least one of these big, wide moats protecting it. But a good feeling isn't enough here. A moat isn't just a nice story you tell yourself. It's a concrete reality that shows up clearly in a company's actual numbers. This is where we look at what Phil calls the big 5 numbers. Now, don't let your eyes glaze over at the mention of numbers. This is honestly simpler than it sounds. These 5 numbers are basically the vital signs of a company's health. We're looking for just one thing: consistency. We want to see each of these numbers growing at more than 10% per year on average over the last 10 years. The first, and absolutely most important, is return on investment capital, or ROIC. This tells you how effectively the company takes a dollar and turns it into more dollars. A business with a genuinely great moat almost always has a high ROIC because it doesn't have to constantly fight brutal price wars. If this number isn't consistently above 10%, just walk away. The other 4 are various growth rates: sales growth, earnings per share growth, equity or book value growth, and free cash flow growth. You don't need to be some kind of math genius to find these. Today, you can look up these numbers for free on websites like MSN Money or Yahoo Finance in about 5 minutes. You're just looking for nice, steady, upward trending lines on the graphs. Are sales growing consistently? Is profit per share growing? Is the company's overall net worth growing? Is it generating more and more actual spare cash over time? If the answer is yes across the board, you've very likely found a business with a powerful, durable moat protecting it. This brings us to the third M, management. You can have the greatest business model in the entire world, but if the wrong person is steering the ship, it can be driven straight into an iceberg. When we invest, we're betting on the jockey at least as much as we're betting on the horse. We're looking for what business researcher Jim Collins calls a level 5 leader. These are people who are incredibly driven and ambitious. But here's the crucial part. Their ambition is for the company's success, not for their personal glory. How do you spot one of these rare birds? First, go read their annual letters to shareholders, which are publicly available. Do they talk like a slippery politician, full of vague jargon and empty buzzwords? Or do they speak plainly and honestly, like a real human being? A truly great CEO takes personal responsibility when things go wrong, and gives generous credit to the team when things go right. Warren Buffett starts his annual letter every single year by telling shareholders exactly how they performed against the market, and if they fell short, he explains in detail why it was his fault and what he learned. Second, look carefully at their compensation. Are they paying themselves an absolutely outrageous salary and bonus while the company struggles? Or is their pay reasonable, with their real wealth tied up in actually owning the company's stock, exactly like you? Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer at Microsoft famously never took stock options, publicly stating that their personal interests were already directly aligned with regular shareholders because the vast majority of their personal net worth was in Microsoft stock they'd purchased. Third, check something called insider trading data, which is also public information. Are the top executives consistently selling off large chunks of their own stock? That's a massive red flag, waving right in your face. There are many innocent reasons an insider might sell stock. They're buying a house, diversifying, whatever. But there's really only one reason they buy their own company's stock in large amounts. They genuinely believe the price is going up. If you can find a business that has genuine meaning to you personally, a wide protective moat confirmed by those big 5 numbers, and great owner-oriented management at the helm, congratulations, you've found a truly wonderful business. You've honestly done about 75% of the work at this point. But here's the thing, you're still not ready to buy. Not yet. Because even the most wonderful business in the entire world can be an absolutely terrible investment if you pay too much for it. This brings us to the fourth and final M, the one that ultimately protects you from everything, margin of safety. This is where we need to meet a character named Mr. Market. Benjamin Graham created this brilliant analogy decades ago. Imagine you have a business partner named Mr. Market. The good news is that every single day, without fail, he comes to you with an offer to either buy your shares in the business or sell you his, at whatever price he names that day. The bad news, and this is critical, is that your partner is completely manic-depressive. Some days, he's wildly euphoric and optimistic. He sees nothing but a glorious future ahead, and he offers to sell you his shares at a ridiculously inflated price. Other days, he's in the absolute depths of despair. He's utterly convinced the world is ending, and he's willing to sell you his shares for literal pennies on the dollar just to escape. Your job as an intelligent investor is beautifully simple. Completely ignore him most days, happily sell to him when he's euphoric and offering crazy high prices, and buy from him with open arms when he's terrified and practically giving shares away. But to do that successfully, you absolutely must know what the business is actually worth, completely independent of Mr. Market's crazy emotional mood swings. This true underlying worth is what Phil calls the sticker price. Think of it exactly like buying a car. You wouldn't just walk into a dealership and pay whatever random number the salesperson throws at you, right? You'd do your homework first. You'd know what that car's actual sticker price should be. A business is absolutely no different. The sticker price is its true, rational, fair value based on reality. The price Mr. Market is shouting at you today is just his current emotion. They're rarely the same number. So how do we actually calculate this sticker price? This is the moment where most people's brains shut down in fear, but I promise you the process is surprisingly straightforward. We need exactly 4 pieces of information, all of which are easily found online for free. First, we need the company's current earnings per share, or EPS. That's simply the total profit divided by the number of shares, the profit per share. Second, we need an estimated future EPS growth rate. This is the number we get from analyzing those big five numbers. We look at the historical growth rates, especially the equity growth rate, and we also look at what professional analysts are currently projecting for the future. Then we pick a conservative number that we genuinely feel confident the business can realistically sustain. Third, we need an estimated future PE ratio. The PE ratio is just a multiple that the market typically pays for a company's earnings. There's a simple rule of thumb here. Take the growth rate and double it. So a company growing steadily at 15% a year will likely have a PE ratio somewhere around 30. We also look at the company's historical average PE over many years, and again, we choose the more conservative of the two numbers. And fourth, we need our minimum acceptable rate of return. For a rule number one investor, this is always 15%, no exceptions. With these four numbers in hand, we can paint a realistic picture of the future. We take the current EPS and grow it by our estimated growth rate for 10 years into the future. This gives us what the EPS should be in 10 years. We multiply that future EPS by our estimated future PE ratio, and that calculation gives us what the stock price should be 10 years from now. Now for the final clever step. If we know what the stock should be worth in 10 years, what should we pay for it today to achieve our 15% annual return? There's a handy mental shortcut called the Rule of 72. At 15% growth, your money doubles roughly every 5 years. So over 10 years, it will double twice. Once at 5 years, again at 10. Doubling twice is mathematically the same as quadrupling. So to find today's fair sticker price, we simply take that future price from 10 years out and divide it by 4. That number is the sticker price, what the business is genuinely worth today. But here's the crucial twist. We do not buy it at the sticker price. We're rule number one investors, remember? We demand a serious margin of safety. Our actual buying price, our MOS price, is 50% of the sticker price. If a wonderful business has a calculated sticker price of $80, we sit patiently and wait until Mr. Market, in one of his periodic fits of panic, offers it to us for $40 or less. When that beautiful moment happens, we buy with confidence. This margin of safety is your ultimate protection from disaster. If you made a mistake somewhere in your calculations, your margin protects you. If the company hits an unexpected rough patch, your margin protects you. If the entire market goes down in flames, your margin still protects you. It's the absolute bedrock of investing with genuine certainty rather than hope. Now there's one last piece to this puzzle, one final fear that can creep into your mind. What if you do all this careful work, you find an objectively wonderful company, you buy it at a 50% discount to fair value, and the price still goes down? It absolutely can happen. Mr. Market can go from merely depressed to completely suicidal. This is where Phil Town gives us our final and perhaps most powerful advantage. He says it's time to grab the stick. You see, the market isn't driven by logic or rational analysis in the short term. It's driven by the physical movement of truly massive amounts of money, controlled by what are called institutional funds, the giant mutual funds, enormous pension funds, and huge insurance companies. These institutions collectively control over 80% of all the money in the market. When they buy, prices naturally go up. When they sell, prices inevitably go down. But here's their critical weakness. They're like absolutely giant cruise ships. It takes them weeks or even months to build a full position in a stock, or to completely exit one, because they're moving such massive amounts of money. You and I, on the other hand, are like tiny, nimble speedboats. We can get in or out of a position in literal seconds with a few mouse clicks. What if we could somehow see which direction those massive cruise ships were starting to turn before they've completed their turn? Well, here's the exciting news. We can. There are 3 simple, completely free tools available on pretty much any financial website that track the flow of this big institutional money in real time. Phil calls them the 3 tools: the MACD, the stochastics, and the moving average. You don't need to understand the complex mathematical formulas behind them at all. You just need to learn how to read their simple signals. basically like reading a traffic light at an intersection. The MACD is a momentum indicator that clearly shows you when big money is starting to flow into a stock or starting to flow out of it. The stochastic tells you when a stock has been oversold, driven down by fear below its real value, or overbought, driven up by greed above its real value. And the moving average smooths out all the meaningless daily price wiggles to show you the true underlying trend over time. Here's the beautifully simple rule. When all your homework is completely done, and a wonderful business is selling at or below your MOS price, you wait for just one more thing. You wait patiently for all three of these tools to flash a green light, a clear buy signal. This signal tells you that the big institutions are starting to move their money in. So you jump in right alongside them, catching the very beginning of the wave. Then, you simply check these three tools for maybe 5 or 10 minutes each week. You hold the stock calmly as it rises. At some point, could be months, could be a couple years, those big institutional players will decide to take their profits and start quietly selling to lock in gains. The tools will detect this movement and flash a red light, a sell signal. When all three tools clearly tell you to get out, you get out immediately. No emotion, no second guessing, or hoping it'll go back up. You sell, take your profit with gratitude, and put that wonderful company back on your watch list, patiently waiting for the next inevitable time Mr. Market panics and offers you another great price to buy back in. Let me share a real example straight from the book that brings this all together. In early 2003, Doug and Susan Connolly, a married couple in their late 40s, with only $20,000 total saved for retirement, decided to try this rule number 1 approach. They both loved restaurants and ate out frequently, so they started their search there. They carefully analyzed the Cheesecake Factory using the 4 M's. It absolutely had meaning to them. They loved the food and the experience. It had a strong brand moat that was obvious. The big 5 numbers were genuinely fantastic, with growth rates consistently over 20%. Management was still led by the founder, a man who clearly loved the business like his own child. They calculated the sticker price to be around $44 per share. Their MOS price was therefore $22, half of sticker. And at that exact moment, Mr. Market was in one of his panics, selling it for just over $18. They checked the 3 tools carefully, and all 3 were literally screaming, "Buy!" They put their entire $20,000 in with confidence. By carefully using the tools to get in and out with the big institutional money over the next 2 years, and by consistently adding $500 a month from their regular savings, their initial $20,000 grew to $78,000. That's a 56% compounded annual return. Absolutely extraordinary. They completely transformed their financial future. Instead of facing a genuinely scary retirement in 20 years with almost nothing saved, they were suddenly on a realistic path to retire very comfortably in just 10 years. That is the genuine power of this strategy. It's not about being a genius or getting lucky or having some special gift. It's about discipline. It's about patience. And it's about having the courage to ignore all the noise and follow a simple, proven set of rules. It's a clear path to real financial freedom that's genuinely open to anyone willing to learn and practice. You start by learning these principles. You practice on paper until you're comfortable, and when you feel genuinely certain, not hopeful, but certain, you take your first small, confident step. You buy your first wonderful business when it's legitimately on sale, and you begin your personal journey toward financial independence. When you really strip everything away and boil it down, Phil Town's Rule Number 1 isn't just a book about investing in stocks. It's fundamentally a book about reclaiming personal power. It's a declaration of independence from a massive financial system that has, for literally decades, told average people, "You can't do this. You're not smart enough. You don't have enough time. You'll mess it up. Just hand us your money and we'll take care of you." And for years, generations really, we believed that story completely. We dutifully funneled our life savings into mutual funds managed by people who, as the data overwhelmingly and embarrassingly shows, can't even match the performance of, quite literally, a monkey throwing darts. We accepted mediocre returns year after year, paid absolutely exorbitant fees that quietly ate away at our wealth, and watched in helpless terror as our retirement accounts got cut in half during market crashes. We became passive passengers in our own financial lives, strapped in and hoping the pilot knew what they were doing. What Philtown does so brilliantly in this book is walk over, hand you the keys to the car, look you in the eye, and say, actually, it's your turn to drive. You can do this. He systematically demystifies the entire process, stripping away all the intimidating jargon and artificial complexity until all that's left is a beautifully simple, common-sense framework that anyone can understand. The core ideas here aren't revolutionary or new. They're the time-tested, proven principles of Benjamin Graham and Warren Buffett. But what is genuinely new and revolutionary is the accessibility. The idea that a completely regular person, a teacher, a river guide, a stay-at-home parent, a nurse, can apply these exact same principles with the help of modern free tools is genuinely transformative. The most profound shift the book demands, at least for me, is the complete change in identity it requires. You stop seeing yourself as a stock picker, trying to guess what'll go up tomorrow, and you start seeing yourself as a business buyer, making careful long-term ownership decisions. That single change in perspective changes absolutely everything about how you approach investing. A stock picker chases hot tips and rumors and gets nervous every day. A business buyer calmly studies quality and value and thinks in years. A stock picker frantically asks, what will the price be tomorrow morning? A business buyer confidently asks, will this company be thriving and growing in 20 years? The 4 M's provide such a wonderfully complete, holistic filter for making intelligent decisions. It starts with your heart and gut, meaning, then moves to the business's competitive strength and protection, Moat, then carefully examines its leadership, management, and finally, and only finally, looks at the price you'll pay, margin of safety. It forces you to be thorough and thoughtful. You can't just find a cheap company and buy it. It has to be a genuinely wonderful company. And you can't just find a wonderful company and buy it. It has to be genuinely cheap. Both conditions must be met. If there's one single idea to take away from this entire book that will protect you for the rest of your investing life, it's absolutely the margin of safety concept. It represents the ultimate intellectual humility. It's the honest acknowledgement that the future is genuinely uncertain and that we can be, and often are, wrong in our predictions. Demanding a 50% discount isn't about being greedy or trying to maximize every penny. It's about being genuinely prudent and realistic. It builds in such a massive protective cushion that even if your growth projections turn out to be too optimistic, even if the company stumbles unexpectedly, even if something completely unforeseen happens, you still have a very high probability of not losing money. And not losing money, as rule number 1 clearly states, is the entire game. So how do you actually start applying this wisdom today, right now? First, and this is crucial, don't rush out and invest a single dollar immediately. Your very first investment should be in your own education and understanding. Start by doing that 3 circles exercise we talked about. What industries are you already secretly an expert in without even fully realizing it? Make an honest list of specific companies in those fields. This becomes your initial shopping list of possibilities. Second, start practicing with zero risk. Pick one company from that list and walk it carefully through the 4 M's, exactly as we discussed. Go to MSN Money or Yahoo Finance right now and look up its Big 5 numbers. Read the CEO's most recent letter in the annual report. It's free online. Calculate a rough sticker price using the Rule of 72 method. You absolutely don't need to be perfect at this. You just need to get your hands dirty and start learning by doing. And finally, start what's called paper trading. Open up a simple notebook or spreadsheet and pretend to invest with fake money. Follow the 3 tools on a few companies. See what it actually feels like to buy and sell based on objective signals, rather than emotions or gut feelings or fear. Do this practice for weeks or even months until you develop a deep, unshakable confidence in the process. When you start feeling more genuine regret about the profits you missed on paper than fear about the money you might lose with real money, you'll know in your gut that you're actually ready to begin investing for real. That was a summary of Rule Number 1 by Phil Town. We've touched on the core principles and framework today, but there's genuinely a world of difference between knowing the path intellectually and actually walking the path yourself. A summary like this can give you a useful map and show you the terrain, but the real journey, the real transformation, only begins when you open the actual book yourself and engage with it fully. It's in the detailed examples, the subtle nuances, the personal stories, and the way a particular passage unexpectedly connects with your own unique experience that true deep understanding is actually born. This overview is really your invitation to see if this book's journey is one you want to take yourself. If anything we've discussed today genuinely sparked a light within you, I really encourage you to pick up a copy and read it cover to cover. The link is in the description below. Reading it isn't just a passive act of learning information, it's an active act of personal empowerment that can fundamentally change your entire relationship with money and your future. Also, if this journey through Rule Number 1 has been genuinely valuable to you, please take just a moment to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. It tells us we're on the right track and helps more people discover these ideas. It also ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another, potentially life-changing book. Let's keep learning and keep growing together.